Howdy again everyone, and today we say llongyfarchiadau, or congratulations to Nikon for launching their first ultra-wide-angle lens that's specifically designed for Z-mount mirrorless cameras which have the smaller aps-c sized DX sensors. This is the Z DX 12 to 28mm f3.5 to 5.6 PZVR. Whew. Which, with its cropped image circle, gives a zoom range that's the full frame equivalent of 18 to 42mm. So that's an ultra-wide angle to a standard field of view. Okay, so 12mm on DX is not quite as wide as other ultra-wide angle lenses for cropped sensors, but still it is wide with a great little zoom range. It has a few extra features too. It has its own built-in image stabilization, useful if your camera doesn't have it. Here's some footage with stabilization turned off and now turned on. Even zoomed all the way in, it's making a great difference, so if your camera is unstabilized, this will help, especially for video work. And secondly, it has a power zoom feature. Alright, not everyone likes power zoom, but actually its implementation here is excellent, working very naturally and quietly at 11 different speeds to suit how you're turning the zoom ring. Power Zoom enables you to use Nikon's MLL7 remote control, their SnapBridge app, or third-party equipment to control the zoom of the lens without touching it, something that's very helpful for video work. Oh, and the lens has an excellent close focusing ability, more on that a bit later. Most pleasing of all is probably its very reasonable price of $370 or about £380 here in the UK. In Nikon land, that's really quite good value. Well, if the lens is any good, that is. I'd like to thank Nikon UK for loaning me a copy of this lens for testing for a couple of weeks, although as usual, this is a totally independent review. The lens's build quality is probably where you feel the low budget pinch the most. Even down to the zoom ring and the lens mount, this thing is made of plastic and there's no visible weather sealing to speak of. Towards the back there's a plastic control ring that turns very smoothly. This can manually focus the lens or be set in your camera to change other functions like aperture, ISO and so on. It controls your manual focus very responsively, and here's some further good news for video makers. Focus breathing is very low on this lens, whether you're zoomed in or zoomed out, as you can see. The lens's autofocus system is silent in use and very fast and accurate too, no problems here. The lens has a 67mm filter thread. It doesn't come with a hood, but one is available separately. Overall, while the lens feels a bit plasticky, its internal electronics work fabulously well, and the power zoom is a very nice implementation. Okay, let's move on and look at image quality. Currently, the highest resolution Nikon DX Z-mount cameras only have 20 megapixel sensors. Well, that is a match for my Nikon Z7 when shooting in DX mode. By the way, a full-frame Nikon camera will not allow you to shoot with this or any other Nikon DX lens in full-frame mode. You are forced to shoot cropped. Anyway, here are some test shots with in-camera corrections turned on. At 12mm and f3.5, we see razor sharpness and excellent contrast in the middle of your images. The image corners look almost as good, although we're getting a little ghosting and lower contrast right in the edges. Stop down to f5.6 and those corners look brighter and punchier. Stop down as far as f11 or f16 and the effects of diffraction cause softening of the whole image frame. Alright, let's zoom in to 28mm then. The maximum aperture here has darkened now to f5.6. Image quality is very similar though, brilliant in the middle right from the maximum aperture and very good in the corners except for some lower contrast. There's no improvement at f8 and at f11 the image starts getting softer again. So, considering the lens's rather long zoom range and low price, it's a consistent enough performance here at 20 megapixels with good sharpness in the corners and excellent in the middle. This is more than enough for 4K video work and stills work too, although if Nikon start releasing high-resolution DX cameras anytime soon, the lens might begin to struggle a bit. Alright, let's bypass in-camera corrections by shooting in RAW and take a look at distortion and vignetting. At 12mm we are seeing monstrous barrel distortion and strong vignetting at f3.5, but stop down to f5.6 or f8 and those corners get way brighter. If you zoom into 28mm, that distortion flips into a pincushion pattern. Vignetting is still pretty serious at the new maximum aperture of f5.6, but again stop down to f8 and those corners greatly brighten up. So we can safely conclude that the lens is definitely built with in-camera corrections in mind. Well, let's move on and look at close-up image quality now. As I mentioned before, this lens can get you very close to your subject, as close as 19cm. At 28mm and f5.6, close-up image quality is a touch softer, but stop down to f8 for that great sharpness to return. Let's see how well the lens works against bright lights now. At wider angles you'll get some soft, translucent flaring, which will only really be noticeable in critical scenes. If you zoom in, it gets a lot more noticeable, so it's just an average performance here. And while we're working in the dark, let's take a look at Coma levels. At 12mm and f3.5 there's almost no Coma smearing at all on bright points of light, which is a great performance. Let's zoom out and look for sun stars. If you want to see those, then you have to stop all the way down to f16 to see them emerge, as you can in the image corners here. Let's take a look at the quality of this lens's bokeh. It's kind of a moot point here considering the lens's wide angles, narrow aperture and DX image circle, but bokeh generally looks quite neutral when you do get up super close to your subject, neither being busy nor perfectly smooth. Overall, well, the Nikon Z DX 12-28mm is a lens that performs very nicely in virtually all aspects, as well as giving video makers a few extra options, and all at a low price. Despite a few caveats, for example I wish it were a little wider and brighter and its uncorrected distortions are crazy, it's really a brilliant little offering from Nikon that, for owners of their latest DX sensor mirrorless cameras, definitely comes recommended. Nice. I always like to review new lenses for crop sensor cameras like this. I reckon this is going to be a popular lens. Well, if Nikon can get a few more interesting DX cameras onto the market anyway. Thanks for watching everyone, and a huge thanks to my Patreon supporters for helping me keep the lights on in my sophisticated test lab, aka my man cave. Check it out in the description below. Patreon supporters get all kinds of extra bonus content that I love putting together. Ciao for now, everyone.